Penelope's nostrils flared. The spiteful heat of her stare bounced off me with no effect. Again, not my fault that she spent as much time on social media as she did doing client work. Still, when looking at tightening up the budget, it makes sense that bloated salaries would be targeted. Martin looked at me with a certain glee that made him appear, just for a moment, as vicious as he actually was. Martin was not someone I envisioned as having a mother. Hatched, maybe, but not born. A half-swallowed chuckle almost gagged me, but I managed to keep white wine spritzer from spurting out my nose. Barely. The image of Martin emerging fully formed, more reptile than mammal, from the remains of an eggshell was impossible to erase. I tried not to snigger. He was such a loathsome being that I couldn't help but cling to that image as my own private revenge. I would never forget the opportunities he'd stolen from me, the rumors he'd spread, the trouble he'd stirred up with clients. I'd overcome the obstacles he'd thrown in my path time after time, but he'd made my life, my success at work, much more difficult. Martin glared as if he could see the image I'd conjured. Really, Mallory? No one will be surprised if they fire you. Your interpersonal skills are somewhat lacking, as I'm sure more than one supervisor has told you. You're not popular with the clients. Which wasn't exactly true. I was quite good at my job. I may not always make the best first impression, helped along by a quietly whispered word or two by Martin. But when it came down to getting work done well, my clients knew I was reliable and organized, efficient, overachieving, hardworking. I was all of those things. Perhaps that explained why my coworkers never accepted me, why I was always on the outside looking in. I was substantially better at my job, and that made me less likable. At least I was self-aware enough to realize it. Changing it, that was simply a step too far. I understood all of this, but why they additionally felt the need to blame me for their failings, that was a puzzle. How Penelope's Facebook addiction, Liz's penchant for sleeping with married coworkers, and Martin's general sliminess, all factors that had impeded their careers, were any fault of mine, I would never understand. My eyes passed over Shelley. At least Shelley was okay. She'd never been blatantly spiteful like the others in my division, but she was hardly warm. I closed my eyes and imagined I was at home in my apartment, a restful space away from these people. It was exhausting being the person everyone blamed and no one liked. Why did I come to these happy hours? I didn't need the hassle. Fitting in wasn't worth it, especially when there was zero chance I'd ever actually be accepted. When I opened my eyes, a second wine spritzer was in front of me. I tried to catch the bartender's gaze to thank him, but he'd already moved on to a blonde, beautiful customer. I drained my first drink and quickly started in on the second. As soon as I finished it, I was headed home. And I was done with these little after-work gatherings for good. Thankfully, my apartment was within walking distance, so I could chug that spritzer with a clear conscience. Chapter 2. The Flu. Why did my mouth feel like it had been stuffed with cotton balls? I tried to swallow and almost threw up in my mouth. Not good. Very not good. I held my breath and fought the urge to swallow again. I needed to be absolutely still. Moving made me want to Ralph, and I would never make it to the bathroom. Even the thought of moving made my head pound with a vicious rhythm. My eyelid cracked of its own volition, and the pain at the base of my skull and behind my eyes ratcheted up. I carefully shut my eyes and lay very, very still. Finally, after counting backward from 100, I started